Computer-generated chess problem 2524 by Chesthetica. So white has a rook, bishop and pair of knights against black's rook and pawn. White's knight on g5 is in a position to be captured, and so is the pawn on d3. So what should white do here? Maybe knight to e4? Well, this would be a mistake because rook to h5 is mate. What about bishop to e3? This is better. After king to e2, rook to e7, maybe rook to f1 check, king to g2, rook captures knight, knight to h3, king to d1, king to f3, and white will probably go on to win this game. But it turns out none of that is necessary. Let's look at the analysis. So as you can see, white is winning, but there's actually a forced mate in 4, and it starts with rook to e7. Okay, so if d2, knight captures pawn, and that's mate. The kings facing each other is usually something you can take advantage of. What about rook captures knight? Same thing, knight to d2 is mate. So rook to f2, preventing the knight from going to d2. Knight to f3. Now here, if rook captures knight, the same thing happens, except that the king and rook are also forked, but it doesn't matter, black is mated. So what is the threat? If rook to b2, rook to e1 mate is threatened. So the other knight is now threatening to aid the rook, so mate can be delivered on e1. Black could try d2, so both knight captures pawn can't be played and rook to e1 can't be played. But you see, white has got two knights. So either knight can capture the pawn, the rook captures, and the other knight recaptures with mate. Notice how the bishop on b6 guards the f2 flight square. And the same is true if rook to e2. But there's a little bit of a variation here. It's important that the b-file knight move to d2, so that after rook captures knight, knight captures rook with mate. Because in this position, if the f-file knight moves to d2, the king can actually move to e1, shielded by its own rook, and that delays mate considerably, as you can see from the analysis. So looking back at this original position, do you think you would have spotted the mate? Or is it more likely that you would have played on, maybe for 10, 15, 20 moves, and won the game anyway? I think you know the answer to that one. Until the next one.
Chesthetica's Book of Chess Constructs, Volumes 1 through 5. Available on Amazon.